If you are diabetic and you just can't seem to get your blood sugar under control, or you can't seem to stop eating the sweet stuff, this weekly's vlog, Zippi Live, is for you. So welcome everybody. My name is Zippi. I'm a registered nurse and a certified food addiction counselor. And today I want to dedicate this week's vlog to people with diabetes who can't seem to get their sugar levels under control, or can't seem to stop eating the sugar even though they know that this is really harmful for them. There are two main reasons why people with diabetes type 2, not diabetes type 1 where like the pancreas just like shuts down and it's mostly pretty much an autoimmune disorder, but I'm talking about diabetes type 2, which is usually caused by bad eating habits, by the food that we're eating. And what happens is many times it's people who are also overweight or with other metabolic problems like, high blood pressure or what have you. And they just can't seem to either stay off the sweet stuff, or they think they are staying off the sweet stuff and their blood sugar still doesn't seem to be under control. There are two main reasons why this can happen. I want to start with the first reason, which is that many people don't understand exactly when they're eating sugar. There are many instances where people are eating sugar and they don't realize it. And then what happens is this is an accumulative thing, and it ends up, even if it's just like, happens once a day or twice a day, at the end of the month, we're talking about a lot of sugar that got ingested, that was put into the body when that person didn't even notice. So I wanted to bust a few myths about what sugar is and what it isn't. And one of, I think, the main mistakes that diabetics make is that they think that if something, a sweetener, comes from a natural source, like from bees, as in honey, or from dates, as in date honey, or if it comes from the sap of a tree and it was not processed in any way, it just was naturally taken from the tree in 100% pure maple syrup, then it's not sugar. Not true. It is sugar. It's very important to understand that honey, maple syrup, date syrup, fruit juice, fruit concentrate, fruit jam with no sugar is still sugar. Our body metabolizes it as sugar. It's pretty much the same chemical makeup as that white crystal stuff you put in your tea or coffee or cakes or whatever. So if you're making a cake with honey instead of sugar, or if somebody tells you this chocolate has no sugar in it, just honey or just date honey, you have to understand that it means that that chocolate or that whatever it is has sugar in it. It is half fructose, half glucose, exactly like table sugar. It causes the blood levels to rise, which causes the body to need to secrete lots of insulin. And somebody who has diabetes, their system isn't working properly anyway. Usually what they have is called insulin resistance. So that means that in order to deal with any sugar in the blood, they need even more insulin than healthy people who don't have diabetes or pre-diabetes. And that means that they're secreting a lot of insulin, which causes them also to gain weight. And it also wreaks havoc on the blood sugar levels and on your body in general because it just promotes inflammation. And then, of course, it also all these sweet, no sugar sugars that are absolutely 100% sugar. Maybe they're not processed, but they're still sugar. And what happens then is the fructose in them causes fatty liver disease. It promotes even more resistance to the insulin, which means the body needs to work even harder to produce that insulin to lower the sugar levels. And then basically people don't understand why their blood sugars are all over the place and they're not eating sugar, but they are. And here's the other myth buster that I'm going to tell you now on my weekly vlog, is that any white flour, be it with gluten or gluten-free, be it from wheat or from spelt or from corn or from potato starch or from rice, any white flour that basically it's not a whole grain, all the fiber has been taken out, it immediately gets absorbed into the body as sugar, raises blood sugar levels, wreaks havoc on the body, makes the body work very hard to get that insulin in. And it's an insulin resistant, usually this person has insulin resistance anyway. So those are sugars, all these white flours, even if they're gluten free, it doesn't mean any, it's just the opposite. Any of them are really like, it's just sugar. All these starches, anything that says starch or flour, if it's not 100% whole grain, even then, even when it is 100% whole grain, it'll still get absorbed as sugar in the blood and raise your blood sugar level a lot faster than if you're eating the whole grain that hasn't been ground into a flour. But let's put that aside. Any white flour, it is just a synonym. It's another name for sugar. That doesn't taste sweet, but it's sugar. And the biggest problem is that the food companies are allowed to call no sugar added if they didn't add any sugar that doesn't naturally come in the food, which means they can put date honey in something with dates and call it no sugar added. But they added sugar. Believe me, they added sugar because date honey is sugar and it gets absorbed into our body just like the same way as it does regular sugar that comes from sugar cane or beets. Same goes for honey. And same goes. So if you see a label that says no added sugar, it doesn't mean anything, because if they added fruit juice or fruit concentrate or fruit jam with no sugar added, it's just 100% sugar. And it's very, very important to know what you're eating. So many people with diabetes eat these cakes with no sugar added, which is white flour, margarine, and a sweetener. So it's true that the sweet taste is not given by sugar, it's given by an artificial sweetener, which we'll talk about in a second. But the flour in it is sugar, and it raises blood sugar, and it causes the diabetes to be even worse. And it also causes the medication or the treatment that person is getting to be less effective. And this is the biggest problem, because diabetes type 2, right? The diabetes that most older people get, which not just older people are getting today, younger people are getting it in their 30s and 40s and even teenagers. It's because of the way we're eating. So when you get medication, right? So yes, the medication maybe treats the symptom of the diabetes, right? It lowers the blood sugar level, but it doesn't treat what caused the diabetes in the first place, which is the food, right? So actually, in the same way that certain foods can be very harmful and can cause disease, other foods can actually be the cure. It is the best medicine there is. You don't need for it a prescription. It's cheap, no side effects, and it's called real food. It's called food that doesn't need a food label. It's called knowing what has sugar and what doesn't have sugar, and what the sugar is. It's not just when it's written sugar. The food industry has hundreds of names for sugar. It's very, very important to learn what they are, especially the main ones. The main ones are about 50 or 60, and it's very important to learn them. And of course, to get into the habit of reading the ingredients of any food that has a label, to see if they're adding sugar to it or not, because if you do this, you just won't believe how many foods they add sugar to. So remember, any starch, any white flour, any kind of sweet natural sugar is sugar. And for diabetics, it can be really, really, really harmful. I said I would talk about artificial sweeteners. Many diabetics think that if they use artificial sweeteners, they can use freely because it does not raise blood sugar levels, which is true. It doesn't. But it's not true that it's something that people should look at as something that is innocent and can be used freely. And I'm not just talking about like whether it does cause cancer or it doesn't cause cancer, whether it does cause I don't know, like aspartame neurological problems or not. These are things that are under dispute and have been researched extensively. And the truth is that while sugar has been proven to be really, really toxic, sweeteners, until recently, it wasn't actually proven if it's directly harmful. It hasn't. From what I've researched, and I always take Dr. Robert Lustig's take on it, is that it's not this innocent, unharmful thing. But if you're going to compare artificial sweeteners to sugar, sugar is way more toxic. They're both toxic. They're both hyper processed foods. And here's the thing. Well, we'll talk about it. They both have a sweet taste that just makes you come back for more. But it's definitely true. I am definitely in the camp that believes that artificial sweeteners are less toxic. But recent research has shown that even though these artificial sweeteners do not raise blood sugar directly, they do have a negative effect on that very, very sensitive insulin blood sugar level, because they affect the microbiota, those trillions of bacteria that we have in our gut that are not only very, very important and crucial for our digestion and for metabolism, but it seems that they affect a lot of different processes in the body, including fighting or not fighting inflammation. And one of the things that it's been shown very recently in research is that many of the artificial sweeteners negatively affect these good bacteria, so that this balance, this beautiful balance between sugar and insulin is affected even more. So if you are diabetic and you are thinking about, using artificial sweeteners, it's very important to use them extremely sparingly. And remember that it is not something that is safe for diabetics necessarily. Maybe it's safer than sugar. Maybe it's less toxic. I'll use that word. It's less toxic than sugar, but is by no means safe for diabetics. And here's the second reason why. And the second reason why for diabetics it's so hard to get off the sweet stuff. Because sugar is addictive. It works in the same place in the brain as nicotine, alcohol, and drugs. And just like some people can have like a shot of whiskey or a half a glass of wine and they don't become alcoholic, there's some people who can have a little piece of cake and they don't get addicted to sugar. But many of the people who are diabetic and find themselves eating sugar, even though they know that this is something that is extremely harmful for them, it might be because of this quality that these hyper-processed, sugary, starchy foods have, that they are addictive. And what addiction means is that somebody who is more sensitive to the addictive characteristics of these foods, that means that when they take a little bit, it doesn't make the urge go away. It makes it even stronger. It turns it into this craving where you have to eat. And that's why also these people can't imagine life without sugar, because it goes from, wow, that's nice, to I want, to I need, to I have, to I can't live without it, even though they know that it's very harmful. One of my clients, who thank God today is living in peace with herself and her food and is at stable levels today, her blood sugar levels were through the roof. And you can't say this woman is not intelligent or doesn't know about nutrition. She is a director, like she manages a company. Okay, she manages a whole company. She studied naturopathy, and yet she was eating sugar like there's no tomorrow. And she knew she was killing herself, and she somehow couldn't stop. But once she was able to get off the sugar completely, then that craving went away, and she was able, and of course, together with a very significant inner process to change that whole discussion and that whole dialogue with food and with sweet and starchy foods, and with the learning about what that means, that these sweet, starchy, hyper processed foods are addictive, and how to deal with that sensitivity to the addictive qualities of these foods. So then she was able to eat in a way that is good for her body and her soul. And why do I say soul? Because these hyper processed, sugary, starchy foods are engineered specifically to make you come back for more. These foods are processed, packaged, and sold in a way that you will eat. You will buy it when you didn't intend to buy it, and you will eat more than you intended to when you do eat it. So what happens is that a person knows they shouldn't eat it. And what does everybody tell us? Just control yourself, right? Like, if you've been educated about diabetes, you should be able to control yourself. And like at the same time, 24/7, we are being bombarded by these messages. Eat me, drink me, eat me, drink me. If you want to be happy, eat me. If you want to have a social life, then you have to eat me. If you want, there is no party without a cake. If any party means that the table has to be groaning with cakes and cookies and all kinds of baked goods and all these hyper delicious foods that it is so, so, so hard not to eat them. And then what happens is somebody eats, and if they are sensitive to that addictive quality, they eat more than they intended, and then they feel terrible, right, about themselves. And also these foods make you feel bad. They make you feel irritated and hungry. They do not make you satisfied. The other way around, they make you very dissatisfied and wanting more. And then also that person feels like guilty and feels like why can't they control themselves? And it lowers their self-esteem. And then they think that because of the low self-esteem, they're going back for more. No, it's because it's causing cravings and this irritability. And this irritability, it gets the feeling like the only way to make this irritability go away is to have something sweet or starchy. And then they eat that and then they feel crap again. And also start going down on themselves like, why did I eat that? And I'm such an idiot. And oh, well, and all kinds of, and it's this vicious circle that is so hard to get out of. And it's very hard to get out of it alone without professional help, especially if there's people who have been struggling with this for years and years and years, right? So if you have been struggling with this for years, if you're diabetic and you have been struggling with these things for years, maybe it's time to let go of the fantasy that someday you will be able to eat just a little bit once in a while, a tiny taste, and that's all. For many, many people, the easiest way to stop eating so much sugar is to stop completely, 100%. Many times this is a very scary thought, especially for people who have that sensitivity to the addictive quality, right? Who crave these foods. Like it feels like, how could I live without these foods? Like there will be no happiness, no good feeling inside. But if they actually have the courage to do it and try it, especially if they do it with professional counseling, then what they discover is that the exact opposite is what actually happens. What actually happens when you completely get off the sugar is you feel better, you have more energy, you're happier, that craving, that 24/7 feeling of wanting and needing sugary, it goes away. It just goes away. And then even if there's a certain temptingness, you can say no and say, no, that's not mine. And it's okay. I don't need to eat it. It's okay. I see it still looks delicious, but I don't need to eat it. That's what happens. The sweet quality gets better. Concentration is more. It's just such a wonderful life, but it's not easy to do at the beginning. The initial detox is not easy. And also if in order for it to become a life change, it's very, very important to change that inner dialogue with those sugary, sweet, starchy, hyper-processed, addictive foods. That is where my specialty comes in. I help people to detox from these foods and to change that inner talk, that inner dialogue, so that it can become that wonderful, wonderful feeling of not needing sugar, not having to have sugar, not constantly feeling like I'm a failure because I couldn't withstand the temptation to make it into a real life change. So if this is something that you would like, I invite you to contact me. I will put my contact details here in the first comment. And if you liked this video, Please like it, comment if you have what to say, share it with a friend if you think this can give them value, and of course, subscribe if you're watching this on my Facebook page, Zippi Leave Ned GPS to Sugar Free. Subscribe to my page. And if you're watching it on my YouTube channel, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel and press that notification button so that you'll be notified every time a new post comes up. I want to wish you all a wonderful day. Have a great week, and I will meet you here again next week at 2 p.m. Israel time for my weekly vlog, Zippi Live. Bye.